All right, thanks everyone for coming on the Goal for Connected Networks call. So the question is, how are you arriving today? And if you're coming to ESHIP and what you're most excited about that. And I will turn it over to Mel.
Oh, sweet. Hey guys. How am I arriving today? So just like what energy am I bringing to this today or what? Yeah. Okay. So feeling a little tired, but plugging through. And then I'm excited about eShip because I'm hoping to, see everybody again and maybe get some more ideas going. And yeah.
Okay, go ahead and tag somebody.
David.
All right. I don't know. I'm arriving good. I'm happy to be at TomTom and just had good conversations already. Been able to hang out with Christine Lai some, which we hadn't hung out before, so that's been great. Saw some family I haven't seen in a while, so I'm in a very happy place right now. What was the second one? Oh, an eShip. Yes, I think I'm going. I want to be there, but I'm not 100%. I'm like 90%. So, and I need to tag somebody. Let's go Mary, because she was looking away.
So I was totally cheating. I was like, what the heck is TomTom Festival and where the hell is everybody at? And why am I not there? That was what I was thinking.
Come on down.
So I was I know, right? So I'll be there in it's in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm in Springfield, Missouri. I'll be there in a couple of days. No, I didn't realize what was going on. I came into all this late. So I'm not arriving. I'm going to arrive in my home via foot and virtual Zoom. And then eShip, it is on my calendar. I'm talking to the boss. I'm like, my goal is to be there because I wasn't able to go last year. They sent a couple other people from our organization, even though I'm in Missouri. So this year I'm forcing them. So, all right, Hassan.
So I'll start with eShip. I am going, and I'm looking forward to the big reveal. Basically, the feedback that everyone has for the things that we've all been working on, and how am I arriving? Really good, actually. I kind of saw what the micro version of ecosystems is. I had a meeting downtown earlier today, and it was a meeting that was supposed to be an hour, and I ended up running into 7 other people that were part of the ecosystem. Right after that meeting, so it was kind of like a micro version of the ecosystem and all the serendipitous collisions that happen in one place. So I will go to Tyler.
Give me about 3 more minutes and I'll be parked.
Somebody else, let's see.
Okay. So you've got Kyle and Carol.
Carol?
Hi, I'm arriving today very upbeat. This is house hunting week for us in our household, and I'm really jazzed to be padding around town looking at some cool houses because we're hoping to move in a few weeks or months. And yes, I'm going to eShip, and I'm thrilled to, because last year I was on the waiting list and kept my fingers crossed until the very end and kept my calendar open and was disappointed to not get a call that there was space for me. So I'm really excited about going this year and meeting everybody in person. And so I'll pick Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol. So I'm arriving very good. So I run a nonprofit here in Kansas City, and I just brought on a co-founder, awesome dude by the name of Johnny. So we sent out the press release for that, and that's exciting news. And I am looking forward to eShip Summit to expose my friend Johnny to this world He's got a business background, but hasn't worked on the ecosystem level in entrepreneurship. And so that should be, it's also the week before so we're hosting our first entrepreneurship competition for formerly incarcerated people, and the public event, the celebration event, will be the evening of Thursday, May 30th. So if you can convince your boss to extend your stay, everyone should come hang out.
All right. Excellent. We'll see when Tyler pops in and tells us that he's parked.
I am pulling in now. 1 second.
Okay. Well, why don't I go ahead? Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody.
There you go.
Literally arriving. I am arriving happy. I'm busy running around Daytona. Super excited for this stuff to get wrapped up and be ready. And I will be at ESHIP. So super excited for that as well. So, and nobody else to call except Cecilia.
Okay, so I am super happy to be here. Super happy to see some people in person, and the planning is going along, and so it's exciting. I will be at ESHIP. And speaking of ESHIP, so I'll give you a little bit of information. We've got a lot of work to do. The work that we're going to be doing at the ESHIP Summit is not so much about the goal work, because we've kind of been doing that the past year. What we're really going to be focusing on is what comes next. So what comes next is, out of all the ideas that were put forth between the last ESHIP in July and now, there have been over 130 ideas or initiatives that are under each of the 7 goals. Enoch, Andy, and I took a first pass at them to find some that we thought were obtainable, fundable, things that we could get some support behind. And then we introduced those to the ESHIP champions. So 12, 13 people ended up in Denver, got together, talked about what they felt was obtainable, doable, fundable, and not that the other 90-some initiatives aren't important, but we have to start somewhere, and 130 plus is a lot. So we've identified about 32. We refined the goal language a little bit, and so that's been passed on and reviewed, and so now we get to the point where we change a little bit of the structure of how the Kauffman Foundation is going to grant. So used to be, like the Inclusion Open was very much, here's what we're doing. We're going to open it up. Anybody with a project that's inclusive or open, why don't you go ahead and submit? We're going to review them, and then we'll fund some. This is a very different model. So what we're doing is, the field has recognized 32 plus initiatives that will move the field of ecosystem building forward. And now Christine, my colleague's focus is finding and getting pledges from national resource providers, some of whom are on the call, that say, we're going to put some energy, some bandwidth, some people power, some funding behind these efforts, collaborating together with practitioners. Those are many of you. So NRP, National Resource Provider, plus practitioner, plus initiative, become a pilot of something that we're going to work towards. So before I go a little bit further, I'm going to have whoever joined us on the 303 area code just tell us who you are, how you're arriving today, and whether or not you're coming to ESHIP, and if you're excited, what you're excited about.
Hi, it's Jackie Dietrich at the Commons.
Excellent.
In stealth mode.
Okay.
And I will be at ESHIP.
Yes. Okay, great. And Jackie's always full of energy, which I really appreciate. So thank you for joining us. So we've been involved in some conversations, and because we're going to offer an opportunity for everyone to meet national resource providers, have some time with them, learn a little bit more about what they do. There's also, what happens is there's all these other conversations that all of you want to have, because it's a really unique environment for 450 people to get together, plus some mayors that are going to be in the room, and you may have things you want to talk about, present, discuss, question, whatever. So we're going to be hosting an unconference prior to the main part of the conference. So if you would like to be part of the unconference, then if you'll get there a little bit earlier on the 21st, I would say just after our lunchtime, the ESHIP champions are going to help host an unconference, and totally an unconference forum. You're going to come in, write down the subject or subject matter that you'd like to discuss or present or whatnot, and they'll help you organize how to do that. So that's basically the very, very brief version of what we're looking at for ESHIP. Does anyone have any questions? Wow, you're an easy crowd. Okay. Or you can email me later. So the way to get a hold of me, the easiest way is the eshipgoals@gmail, which is what I sent out the information on. And I also shared with you this handy dandy dashboard. So let's go ahead and share the dashboard. So you all in your emails have a link to this dashboard. This is where we're working as a group. All of the video recordings of all of the past calls, as we get a chance to upload them, live in here. So this call will go here when we're done. And any of the initiatives, and you'll see the actual initiatives that are living under each goal. So again, as I mentioned, these are not that they're most important, but these are a good starting point. So for connected networks, we're looking at an ecosystem building toolkit, the calendar, an event calendar, and Co-Starters has something going, a little bit more of a communication channel, and that would be where you would have a forum and journals. This is all a draft. Keep that in mind. David, you can show everyone your shirt that you're wearing to show everyone that this is indeed a draft, right? The Ecosystem Storytelling Clearinghouse, which is a project that Jeff Bennett, along with Tyler and Avery, are working on. There are contributors. I know SourceLink has some stories, Co-Starters has some stories that they'd like to share. It's just a repository. And Jeff has built kind of a pilot of that, and let's see if we can get some support and some energy behind that. National Resource Provider Network and governing bodies, so like a standards board. And I've had a couple of conversations with several of you about things like that. So the ESHIP champions are working alongside people to put these things together. All of you that are taking part in this, we would love to have more of you. So what the ESHIP champions are currently doing is they're creating what we're calling a brief. And the brief is a way to intro people. So let's say when you arrive at the ESHIP Summit, you flip open the program guide. And when you look at the program guide, it should give you a description of what we're trying to achieve, you know, problem solution, your value statement, things like that. What phase of involvement or completion it's at. And so that's what we're trying to create, and the ESHIP champions are helping us create those things. So let me ask you, as you look at this, and I'll put the link into the chat. That so go ahead and ask your Mel?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Yeah. So I guess my question was, this is only my second meeting, so sorry if this is something that's already been discussed. But have you already started working on like putting together these national resource providers in the network, or is that what we'll be talking about at ESHIP? Is like.
So there were national resource providers that have been part of the past 2 eShips. Christine, my colleague, is currently talking to, engaging national. So my focus is ecosystem builder practitioners such as you. Christine's focus is national resource providers. So there are, I don't know, I'm going to ask Christine, how many ballpark are we looking at for eShip? We've invited around 70. So we're hoping to have at least half of them be engaged in putting together some support behind these efforts. Did that answer your question, Mel? Yes? So, David, you're a national resource provider, or you work with a national resource provider. Tell us a little bit about what makes your organization unique as opposed to like, Jackie is a resource, but she's a resource in her region. So where that scope delineates.
Yeah, and I feel like we're a goofy one because we feel like a hybrid of the two because of how we engage with folks and because we're still tied in Chattanooga. But we
tell them who you are.
So I'm David, and so on the training side with co-starters, and so we try to implement programming that supports the work that's already happening in the community, and so more and more it's how do we make sure to connect people to the resources they need, not just provide even the ones that we have. So we're trying to and that's been a shift we wanted to make for a while, but we engage currently we have programs, but our new engagement really is more along the lines of assessing where a community is, seeing what resources are out there that would best move them to the next step or fill in a gap is really what we're finding out. It's not necessarily linear, but is the gap in the beginning of the pipeline of entrepreneurship? Is it in strategic partnerships locally or in the state level? Is it, it could be space, but any of those things, and then just connecting to the right places. So that's our engagement is sort of a goofy one, because a lot of times we get into the weeds with the people, that's the fun work. So that's what I get to do when we go train is, go in and actually meet all of the people and help collaboration exist. More and more, I think we're just curators at Co-Starters. We hope to just curate human capital, resource capital, put the right people in the room, and then go like, hey, do stuff. So that's where we're a little goofy than that. And a lot of the other resource providers, and we all ended up in the same place, the ones that we like working with, because they're all in it for the same reason. We all kind of started to help our town, just like everybody's doing that we support, and help our city or our region or our state. And so that's still our goal. And if we find ourselves out of alignment of doing that for someone, we try to be fairly quick in backing off and saying that, then don't waste time on this resource that doesn't work. So, but that's how we engage now. We still have a core entrepreneur support program, a 9-week course for entrepreneurs, but that is less and less the bread and butter of what we do. So does that answer your question, Cecilia?
No, that was great. Thank you, David. So to Mel's question, is part of this goal putting together a repository of different resources? So yes, and that's where Co-Starters is definitely helping us. So Co-Starters, several members of Co-Starters are focused on helping to curate the marketplace, and a marketplace is a searchable repository of the kind of programs that are available, and they're available on a nationwide basis or on a regional level, so that you can engage with them and be able to replicate, partner, collaborate in your community. So marketplaces coming along. So
And that's one of those, like for a specific example, we'll run into sites that are like, oh yeah, I've had the tab up for 1 million cups for like 6 months. Is that any good? Right? Because they're new and they aren't connected in the way other people are. And so we're trying to systemize that experience for people with a curated, approved list of these are good programs if they are a fit for you. You know, and that's really all that feedback is coming from the community. But you know,
How to find them.
yeah, how to find them and how to know that they're any good, because you know there's tons of stuff out there and everybody's saying like, oh, we've got the answer. So you know, but they're selling stuff. So of course they say they do. So and we sell stuff too. So you know, full disclosure, you know, we might be biased sometimes, but we're trying not to be. We're doing our best to pull out of that role more and more because of that. So but that's one. Yeah, we get a lot of questions about some very basic programming that we're like, no, that is awesome. Absolutely, take the soup model and run with it if you've got social entrepreneurship going on or something. So
Can you give an example of what kind of programs you're promoting on the marketplace and what that's going to look like and roll out and all that? I mean, at Small Business Majority, we have a platform called venturize.org that sounds, have you seen it? It sounds, is it similar to that, or is it connected? How do we connect those resources?
I am 99% sure that Venturize is in there as one of the potential ones, because we're in touch with some other, you know, that's a fairly known, like, good resource. But if you have something, to your other question, and send that in by all means, you can shoot them to me, which is fine, but even better, I'll throw in the chat the link to our person who's just gathering all that stuff and putting it into the marketplace.
What kind of things do you want? What kind of things are you putting in there so we know what to see?
Yeah. So our goal is, we're aiming right now at ecosystem builders, right? So we're looking at the people that are gathering the network in an area for supporting entrepreneurs. So it'd be programs to support those people. So and there could be direct to entrepreneur stuff in there, right? Because you might say like, this is a tool for that ecosystem builder to use with entrepreneurs, you know. So and some of it's very simple. Some of the stuff in there might just be like meetups because people don't know that those exist, or and a lot of it will be free because a lot of these tools are free. But then anything like that, so like our 9-week course, that's an ideation to implementation program would be good. There's a CEO mindset this group has in Florida that we want to throw in there. Psychological pieces, funding expertise, but then also for the ecosystem builder, things that they need, how to do roundtables with the other organizations with them and stuff. So all of that would be great.
I feel like, Mel, is there a network of research librarians, because they're a gold mine and they're all over the country, but do you have a connected network?
We do. So we have the Urban Libraries Council, and there's actually a cohort, an entrepreneurship cohort within it. So we're working on some of the same types of things where we're trying to, figure out, like, how do we measure, how do we do all of these things just at a library level, as far as entrepreneurship goes. And one of the things that we talk about too is, like, when you're trying to reach rural and communities that don't have internet, so, are there going to be options too for some of these resources for people who aren't necessarily connected in that way?
That's excellent. So
Mel, we should connect. I'll pass you by email so I can bring you into Rural
Okay.
Rise.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Well, yeah. So now Mel is in St. Louis, which is really great because Rural Rise is in September in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So you are within driving distance.
Yeah, for sure.
And Mary, for sure. Right? So I was going to ask Carol, you have
Before
a
you
group.
step away from
Oh,
David,
yes.
David, can you be sure to share whoever to get contact to? We submitted a couple of things from Florida, but there was no kind of return or notification of got it, thanks, So I don't know if we need to do follow up or not for some of our stuff. Anyway, sorry. Thank you.
You're all welcome to follow up too. That's Carrie. So shoot stuff to her. You probably didn't get follow up because I think we got like 850 entries, and we are working on it.
Okay, great. Yes.
Okay.
So keep in mind we're just kind of still clearing the path. We're not even paving road yet. We're like totally clearing paths. So bear with us. And yes, it is, everything's a draft, and so we're trying this out. So Carol, you started Illinois Incubator. How many organizations do you have partnered?
We are just the incubators and the accelerators, co-working and maker spaces in the state. So we're kind of still in the launch mode. We've got 212 of those kinds of organizations of all sizes and shapes, scattered through the state. We have not yet started responding to any of the interested sponsors who have shown interest. Our sponsor definition, though, is basically anybody who wants to sell something to one of our 212 innovation hubs or any of the 5,000 to 8,000 startups they house. So it's our typical sponsor, I think, is, some of them might be national partners in the end. Like by next year at this time, or even in the fall, we might have our initial group of them locked in and closed. But it's, a lot of bankers, a lot of tax people, website builders, professional services of all kinds, car rental companies, basically anyone who wants to do business with a lot of startups and have exposure and visibility to startups. They can give us money as sponsors, and we will pave the way for them to get introduced and visible to our community, our statewide community.
Great. Okay. So yeah, let us know how that progresses. So Kyle, I wanted to ask you because it seems like when the conversations around formerly incarcerated people, as we're working towards recidivism, I can never pronounce that. It's like,
close enough.
I'm sorry?
I was just kidding. Go on.
Okay. So everybody seems to want to do that, right? I mean, there are people in states everywhere that want to do it. Obviously, in Oklahoma, where we incarcerate more women than anywhere else in the world, we're really trying to focus on doing stuff. But so as somebody who's working on a program that's being, I don't want to say replicated, but it is replicated, right? Is that basically what you're seeing as let's say, when somebody says formerly incarcerated and incarcerated people, I go, oh, wait, let me connect you with Kyle. And so there's got to be a way that we should be able to do this better, faster, and hopefully that's what the marketplace is. But what are you seeing the challenges as?
So when I started Determination Incorporated, the name of my nonprofit, I also started a podcast called Own It, Starting a Business After Prison. And I mostly used it as a relationship building tool to reach out to entrepreneurial support organizations around the nation who specifically work with the justice involved population. And so I've continued to connect with all the guests. We have a monthly conference call called Prison or ESHIP, and there are like 22 of us now. And more to your point, everyone, is obviously working with the same population, but everyone's solution is a little bit different. And the networks that everyone has in their local communities is unique to wherever they are. But I know as we think about scaling down the road, we're most interested in the train the trainer model. And so just coming in and saying, hey, you got the entrepreneurship thing over here and the reentry thing over here. And if you guys learned how to speak to each other's populations, you could work together, and then you could start this workshop and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's what we are looking at. I'm definitely going to invite all of those organizations that I just mentioned who are on our Prisoner ESHIP conference call to come to ESHIP, because it'd be cool to meet in person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are things that, you know, if you're able to get them to come and come early, that would be a great topic for an unconference, you know, just throwing it out there. But that would be a really cool space to meet. And the middle night is basically where you have dinner on your own. So if you have people that you want to connect with, that's a really good time to schedule. We'll have the information and the app and all of that stuff out as soon as possible. Things work a little slowly. We're finding out as it needs to go and be approved in certain different models. For you have to present it to different divisions of the foundation, so it does take a little bit longer, but we appreciate everyone's enthusiasm and participation. So this call, and especially because I'm in a loud place, this call is more about you and connecting than it is about me and telling you. I've told you what we're hoping for at ESHIP and what we're hoping to support, but you know, you're the ecosystem builders that have the parts of the program ideas and the energy behind them. I'm here to support and figure out how to work on that. So I'm going to leave it open for, does anybody have something that they'd like to add?
Yeah, I have a quick question. So earlier you were explaining about all the initiatives that were put forward. So I think you said 190 or whatever. If we were working on one and you know, have some traction and don't want it to fall off the table just yet, is there going to be a chance to put it back out there?
Okay, so that's a really great question. There were all those initiatives that were proposed, and what the way that we raised up some of them, and by raising up just as a good starting point, not as these are the answers, was we looked at things that were able to be done across a field, a greater field, across the United States. So if we found some that addressed specific demographics, specific regions, we knew that there would be energy around them, and absolutely, they're not that they're gone. They're just kind of held in a place, and if you have momentum behind it and support behind it, and if the national resource providers or anybody else that comes to ESHIP or is part of the ESHIP community, whether it's on Slack or the Facebook page, all of these things, please collaborate, right? So we don't have any of the answers. Christine and I have been going to the foundation month after month and looking for that answer room, and I'm going to tell you, it's just not there. So all of you have parts of the answer, and I think that's the goal, that we're going to come together and figure out what you're doing and what someone else is doing and how to connect those networks. And so this is crucial. The other thing that I've discovered in looking at this higher view, so when I say higher view, it's not like a hierarchical view, but more of a wider range view, and some of the ESHIP champions can tell you, like, now you're looking across 7 goals, not specifically like the one that you were geeking out on, right? The one that you were geeking out on is great, but then you realize that, wow, in order to have connected networks, if we don't have collaborative culture, like these connected networks, aren't necessarily going to work together, right? So you can't get to sustainable work and universal support without having those. So they're infused and intertwined, and the idea of these 7 goals are they're fractal, because if we look at it from a field level, if they don't work in Springfield, Missouri, then what are we building for? Does that make sense? So I hope that answers your question, Kyle. So absolutely, having, oh, and I think we just lost him. So absolutely having initiatives and support and co-collaborators, that's what we're shooting for. So
Is Kyle still here, or did he drop off?
I think he dropped off.
All right, I would say if we can get him on the Slack and get him on the Unconference Slack, I'll work with him to have him ready to bring that up at Unconference. I think that'd be a great place to get that planted in everybody's brain. So somebody tell Kyle it.
Excellent. Just ping him. He's on the Slack channel, or ping him on, and say, hey, let's do something together. So that's the idea of some of these calls too. It's hearing. Oh, is he back? Kyle, you're back. So
yeah.
So,
sorry about that. I was moving my phone and I hit the red button.
Okay, so be sure to connect with Tyler and figure out what you guys can work on together. But so Mary, what's the hardest part about finding or creating those connected networks for you?
So, I think when I started doing this work here in Springfield, everybody, they're just siloed off, right? And everybody's so busy, they have no funding to add somebody into their staff team that can specifically focus on this. So I think that, right now I'm on a board for an ecosystem building group here in Springfield that's sort of coming at it from a different viewpoint than what I have been, because they're coming at it more from the business owner viewpoint versus a nonprofit. So it's just trying to get everybody onto the same page at the same time, and connected. I can see momentum happening here locally, but it's creating that sustainable model. My goal is really just how can this be sustainable if I'm not here driving it? If somebody else, we need to have all the different organizations. That's sort of what I see is just the funding for them to really make it an integral part for them. I think they see the value once they get going. They just don't have the bandwidth to do it. So, and then I work a lot in the rural entrepreneurship realm as well. And so for there, it's just a whole different bag of issues. I mean, trying to build ecosystems within that is you have providers and RPs that have funding to go into those areas, but they just don't go because of the time and the money and the effort, and so they're very isolated and they may not have broadband, and so it's just depending on the area. It's just, I think it's a lack of awareness, lack of funding, sometimes lack of empathy. They just don't care. Apathy, but
that's a shame. I wonder, so Jackie, you're on the flip side of that as far as a community, but I often wonder, like, you're the heart and soul that I see of Commons and the work that you do, and how does it run without you? Does it, the whole idea is that you're hoping that it does, right? So so I'm curious, because you do have support, but you also have people that you have to answer to.
So for us, the important thing is having a place that the community truly feels like it is an asset that belongs to the community. And oftentimes when people are trying to conceptualize what we do, we talk about it as a public library. Where it's our job is not to be the resource, our job is to understand what resources are the right fit for the entrepreneur at the right time. And that is really what helps us to scale. And part of the reason that I'm so interested in this connected network is because oftentimes, we're looking at we're trying to find the other practitioners who are out there who understand what those best resources are. And to have, even though we're very place-based, to have that national scope in mind is critically important. Does it run without me? I mean, our ideal situation is being able to provide just the guide rails for people to be able to do what they want to do within the entrepreneurship community. And so understanding the resources that are out there are often what give us the parameters for people to be as creative as they can possibly be. So mapping the ecosystem, mapping the resources, all of that is like truly what makes our 2-person team able to scale to reach 10,000 people a year.
Well,
Is that what you meant?
And something Jackie said there, I think is so integral to why it hasn't just taken off here in Springfield yet, is that we haven't found the right sustained organization to house it yet. So I'm working with a lot of those little, like I work with the library very closely, and they're very, very involved with this kind of process. Well, you have to get the community buy-in, the other organizations buy-in that the library is where it needs to be housed. Or is it the SBDC? Or is it the Economic Development Center? Or is it the Chamber? Because you still, until you really get into it, there's that struggle for who's going to be on top and who's going to be able to do it. So for an organization like Small Business Majority, we're grant funded. And so for me, it's very tenuous. What grants do I have? We need some place like the library station or the libraries or, you know, the SBDCs to really become that lead role. And so I'm really excited to find out how other people have done that, how they determined who was going to take on that, or was it just like, I'm going to do it and either follow along with me or jump off ship? Because the whole goal of being collaborative is that everybody likes what's going on. So I'm interested.
So I feel like the challenge that we have on stuff like that is that we create those community czars, and they basically dictate what happens in the community, and that's a challenge too, right? So it's supposed to be grassroots, but we also know that grassroots don't happen unless we put a little framework around them. It has to be squishy, flexible framework, but there needs to be something, like Jackie says, guide rails. You know, Christina and I talk all the time about being air traffic controllers. So our job is to support. Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely our approach. We often, we need to find a better metaphor, but that idea of community quarterbacking, where we're the ones who understand what all the plays are and who's on the field. But our job is just like throwing the ball. What's made the Commons so effective is that we are, we try to get every organization to bring the best of what they want to contribute to the broader public. And so it's given the sense that the Commons is truly, even though we're a nonprofit, also grant funded, you know, we try to mobilize all of those resources in collaborative kinds of ways. And so that is that sort of mapping, and I think that's allowed us to kind of carve this niche in our community, where all of those organizations feel like part of what they do is contributing through the Commons to the broader public. I don't know, I think one of the reasons that we're considered as a funding candidate for organizations like Kauffman is because organizations like ours aren't cropping up everywhere, in communities everywhere. So I think I love that the library conversation keeps coming up, because I think they're probably the most like-minded partner that we have here in Denver, the public library is. And again, considered to be like a common asset to the community.
Go ahead, Carol.
This is Carol. Speaking of libraries, I've seen more and more publicity on the Grow with Google program of teaching coding at public libraries to students, adults, and any number of people who just want to learn coding, whether they have an entrepreneurial interest or not. Has anybody actually seen that has started yet in their community? I'm seeing the ads, but here in the Chicagoland area, I haven't yet heard about any actual, programs happening within library buildings as part of that Grow with Google national initiative. Does anybody know about that?
I don't know that that's taking place. I mean, we have Google that moved into Oklahoma, and I know that they sponsor a lot of things in the schools, but I'm not sure about libraries per se. So that would be a good question for Google, maybe. David,
They are working with Startup Weekend.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they're working with Startup Weekend, it's Techstars, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah. David, I'd love for you to share about, because we talk about communities coming together, and I use Athens, Tennessee as a great example for that. So is it 12,000 people that live in Athens, Tennessee? Will you share that story?
Yeah, and I just know some, and I'm sure we're going to get to hang out with them this week. They're coming in town for the rural development, but they're not unlike a lot of more successful rural communities these days. They have a college there, Tennessee Wesleyan, and they also happen to have a supporter there who is Mayfield Dairy, which if you're not from our area, you have no idea who they are, but they are our local homegrown dairy. So, it's the milk and ice cream that we buy to support that. And that family mixed with the university, mixed with, in a rural Tennessee location, a fairly inclusive approach from their chamber. They all got to the table together around these collaborative women from the university that just kept bringing everybody together and saying, we need this, and ended up with a pretty impressive co-work space, programming mix of young people, older people. It's this really inclusive, cool community. And they they reached out and were just supported. And it's, for me, the more I've been thinking about it, talking to people recently, it is, it's leveraging the trust that you've built in the community to breed collaboration. And then the second stage of that then is like, how do you then hand off that trust to make a more sustainable model? So the people have done that really well there, I think, is one of the really cool things. You can speak to it some too. Cecilia was there with us when we got to go train them. But it was obvious that everyone in the room believed what they said, believed about who they were, believed in the vision they were casting, their skills, their ability to follow, like everything. There was full confidence in them. And that's one of those, like, it's a lot of Jackie's ability is that same batch of like just creating this trust based on who you are, what you're trying to do, and being, not neutral. You're pro-entrepreneur, you're pro-collaboration, but not being agendized against a group. You'll find that there's collaborators from all over. The white rural dudes in that room were super open and awesome, which is a pleasant surprise sometimes. And I don't mean just racially. I mean, chambers VDCs can be very protective, because they're scared about what's happening. And, and they've been forgotten. So it was a really cool thing to watch. So that's a very quick version of that, but it's a neat spot, and it's possible to do. They're going to make some change really quick in that town because of what they're doing.
Yeah, I saw the same momentum when I was in Ada, Oklahoma. So Ada, town of 17,000, and again, for the university there. The Chickasaw Nation had moved their headquarters to Ada, and it's a manufacturing hub. So they had an entrepreneurial summit in this. So it is possible to have an entrepreneurial summit in a town of 17,000. When I went to go visit, it was really unique to see there were French exchange students, Bahamian exchange students, and these Bahamian exchange students had a band. Like, they didn't know each other before. They're all exchange students at this university, and they started playing together. So, collaboration takes many forms, and community is created those ways. And it's just about connecting and creating more serendipitous. But I get you, Mary. It's like, what, it can't just all be you, right? I mean, it's exhausting. And entrepreneurs are very needy people, because that's what we do. We support entrepreneurs. And then supporting the ecosystem builders are usually tired, and we burn out. So that's why that sustainable work is really important. Being in a community like this, where we get to see each other and do, that's, yeah. So Tyler, share about the cause, not do.
Cause not do. The great and wise and all-knowing and all-powerful Andy Stoll, the man behind the curtain.
Oh no! Did he get all the power now too? We're in trouble.
He blessed us with this tidbit at the end of the ESHIP champion get together in Denver, because we were getting a little out of hand and we were starting to take stuff on ourselves, and he reminded us very kindly that the best way that we as champions and as people that are taking the extra time and the extra initiative right now in between summits to do this work and have these conversations and get on these calls and stuff, don't feel like we have to do all of it. We have to do some of it because everything is a draft, but eventually we got to turn something in. So we do have to work on it, but cause not do is a great way to think about how to engage back in your own communities as well on what they are. And I want to say kudos to Cecilia for reminding everybody that even though we call ourselves ecosystem builders, we're not always talking about businesses and startups. Think outside the box when you're talking to your people in your town and bringing them to the table. So does that help? Is that it? Did I get an A? Okay.
Excellent. Yes, Hassan, you've been on several calls. You've been working around all of this, and so you've got this really field-wide view, right? Not just of the goals, but of all the things that are happening. So share with us about the connectedness there.
So from that perspective, all of the goals and the initiatives under the goals are connected. So at times when I look at the goals and I look at the initiatives, you see clear connections between something that sits under one goal and something else that sits under another goal. So there isn't really, when you look at the goals and the initiatives, there isn't a hierarchy where this has to come first. It's almost like a circle where they're all connected and feeding into each other. So the goals and the initiatives under each goal aren't like hierarchical. They're basically a circle that all feed into each other and are interdependent on one another. And I know some of the initiatives way back got moved under different goals, and the storytelling stuff kind of sits in everything because it's important to
not goal 8.
Yeah, not goal 8. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, it's that's what I've seen by sitting in on a lot of the calls, and there's a lot of connectivity between every conversation that's happening on each of the goal calls. You see how all of them are really, really connected. Once you're sitting in on the different calls, you notice the connectedness between every one of the calls.
So thank you for that, and I want to readdress what Kyle brought up before. Those other 90, almost 100 initiatives that are not listed on that dashboard, it's not that they're not important. They're absolutely important. There are things that need to be done, but we've got to start somewhere. And we feel like if we can get pilots under these 32, if we can get half of them going, right, it will just move the needle a little bit more. So I want all of you to think about ESHIP the summit that's coming up as not the end, the deadline, the whatever. It's just a point in time where we come together and share ideas and do the things in person that we can't necessarily do on calls like this. All the other work is still being done. Like Kyle is still doing determination, and David's still doing co-starters programs, and Jackie's still trucking on in Denver. So work is being done by all of us all the time, and the energy and the efforts and your initiatives and your insights that you share here are incredibly valuable. So I want to thank you all for doing that. And I will, let's see, you've got all the dashboard stuff. Communicate with each other on link, on Slack, on Facebook. You don't need me. I'm not your gatekeeper. I'm just a conduit to help support these efforts. Please work together, and we need you to lead. So with that, I will give everyone, if you've got one word to close, and we'll send everyone back to what they're doing in their respective areas. So Mary, give us a word to close.
Gosh. Why did you start with me?
Gosh is okay.
Gosh dog it. Have a good day.
Go ahead and pick somebody else.
All right, Tyler, you're right underneath me. Go for it.
Tom.
All right, you're gonna pick.
Hassan.
So Tyler, you and I are thinking the exact same thing, because I was going to say Tom squared for Tom. So I'll see you tomorrow.
Go ahead, Hassan, pick somebody.
Mary?
She went with gosh.
Did. That's right. David?
It was just one word, so I'm going to say Tom.
Jackie, save us.
Magic.
You're thinking about Andy and his magic shows. That's great. Kyle?
Sunshine. Carol.
I'm going to say sparkle.
Mel.
Who's left?
Mel.
Mel.
Jazz. Jazz.
Excellent. Most excellent. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. And we will see most of you, fingers crossed, at ESHIP.
Have fun, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.